Alright, hi everyone. This is going to be a video going through the assessment moderation in the HSC. What I'm basically going to be talking about is how your HSC mark is going to be calculated throughout this next 12 months. The reason why I'm making this into a video rather than just doing a presentation again is because with a video, you guys can keep referring back to it throughout the year and you can skip to specific sections and all that. So hopefully this answers all your questions, but of course, if you have any further questions, make sure you just ask any one of your teachers and they can help you. So throughout this video, I'm just going to go through the following things. So I'm going to talk about what your school assessments are and then how they're calculated and what they're used for, and then that creates a rank. So I'm going to be talking about the importance of the rank, and then once you do your exams, how your moderated assessment marks are calculated, and then lastly, of course, how your final HSC mark is calculated. Then after I've talked about all that, I'm just going to go through a quick example to kind of showcase how it all works. So going into this first bit, we need to talk about how the school assessment marks are calculated. So as you know, each one of your assessment tasks for each of your subjects has a weighting, and that's given as a percentage. Generally, you'll see that it's mostly like 25% for each one of them. Some departments do things a little bit differently, but you'll see that on average, there'll be about 25% per assessment task. And that's because in Year 12, you can have a maximum of 4 assessment tasks. The last of which is always going to be the trial HSC exam. I think 1 or 2 departments have a quick little assessment task after the trials, but for the most part, the trial exam is going to be your last assessment, and it will count for all of your subjects. If you're wondering when all these assessment tasks are or what they're about, just check them out in the assessment plans that you should have received at the start of the term for each of your subjects. So going into what they're used for, so once you've done all your assessment tasks for the whole year, so once the trials are done, everything's been calculated, you get your overall assessment mark, and that school assessment mark, that SA, so in this video I keep referring to it as SA, so that school assessment mark determines your rank. So whoever has the highest will get rank 1, whoever has the second highest will get rank 2. If 2 people have the same mark, that means they have an equal rank. So let's say the top is 90 and then second is 85, but someone also got 85. That means there'll just be 2 people in rank 2. There'll be no rank 3, and it'll just go to rank 4. So that's how the rankings work in that regard as well. These school assessment marks that we've gone and calculated are sent to NESA. They do collect them all. However, they only really care about the rank, and to a lesser extent, they do care a little bit about the difference between each rank for the moderation process, which I'll talk about in a second. So just a quick few things about the ranks. The rank is, like I said, it's used for the process of moderation that NESA does, and basically the way that you want to kind of think of it is by getting a better rank, or the best rank possible, you put yourself in the best scenario going into HSC exams. It is not the only thing that matters, and if you go into HSC exams with a bad rank, you are not destined to fail. Alright? It means you have put yourself in a more difficult task, and depending where you are in the rankings, maybe you won't be able to get a band 6 any longer, but it is not the be-all, end-all. The easy way that I like to tell students to think about it is the better your rank is, the less people you have to rely on when it comes to HSC exams. What that means is if you're rank 1, that means when it comes to HSC exam, you just need to do well yourself, and then you'll do well. If you're rank 2, you need to do well, but then you also need to hope that rank 1 will also do well. So when you get down to rank 10, you need to hope that all the 9 ranks above you do well, and then you also do well. Obviously, that means if you're at the bottom rank, you need to make sure that everybody else in the class does well. So this is why I'm saying having a good rank going into HSC exams is super important, because essentially you just have more wriggle room if you don't do so well. You need to understand that less people to rely on is better for you. So once that rank is calculated and all the assessments are done and you go into HSC exam, what NESA does is they will calculate the moderated assessment mark I just keep referring to as MA. So the way that this is calculated is once you've done the HSC exams and they've all been marked and everything, what they'll do is they'll look at, they'll for each class, and I know that in some cases there's multiple classes for the same subject. So I guess I should say for each subject, let's take maths for example. Let's say we're looking at the mathematics standard exam. We look at the mathematics standard exam marks and we add them all up, and then that creates like a mark pool. Alright, so let's just refer to it as that. Whoever got rank 1 in the school assessment mark, so going back to that, will get the highest exam mark in that group for their moderated assessment mark. Whether they were the person that got it or not, it doesn't matter. As long as they were rank 1, that highest exam mark will be their moderated assessment mark. Once that kind of sets the cap, nobody can go above it, and then basically the rest of the marks in that mark pool would then be shared based on the order of your rank. So whoever's rank 2 will get the next most points for their moderated assessment mark, rank 3, so on and so forth. What they do is they make sure that the amount of marks in the HSC in the exam marks equals the amount of marks in the moderated assessment marks. And like I say, I have an example coming up which might make this a bit more easier to understand, but that's how it works. Just want to make a quick note because there is like a kind of, not so much of a rumor, but an idea, an old wives' tale that this is how it works. What it does not mean, even though rank 1 does get the best exam mark, that does not mean rank 2 would get the next best exam mark and rank 3 would get the next best exam mark. It doesn't work that way. The difference between each of the ranks goes based on the difference in the school assessment marks. So if your rank 1 or rank 2 was only like 1 mark difference, that means the moderated assessment mark is going to only have a very small difference as well. And then let's say there was a massive gap between 2 and 3, that means there'll be a massive gap in the moderated assessment mark as well. So that's where the differences come in, I mentioned earlier. It's all based on rank, but then the differences in the school assessment mark kind of plays a factor, but the school assessment mark itself does not play a factor in this at all. So, once that moderated assessment mark has been given to everyone, and everyone also has their own exam mark, the final HSC mark is then calculated. So, once that's calculated, the average of each person's exam mark and their moderated assessment mark, which came from that mark pool, is then the average is taken of that. And that average is the final HSC mark, which is basically the big number that determines how well you went in the subject. There's nothing after that. That is the final mark. The reason why they do this is to make sure that that final exam is important, but it's not like, if you don't do too well in that exam, you still have a chance if your rank was still pretty good. The reason why this is done is so it's to make sure that teachers across the state aren't just giving very, very easy assessments. I mean, if the school assessment mark actually mattered, what I would do as a maths teacher is I'll make my test just 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3, 1 plus 4. Hopefully all my students would get 100%, and then because all my students got 100% in everything, that means everyone's going to get a band 6 and easy peasy. But of course, if I did that, then every other teacher in the state would do that. So that's why they needed to implement this system. And so you note here that the final HSC marks, at no point does it talk about the school assessment mark. The school assessment mark does not influence your final HSC mark at all. It only creates the ranks of which the moderated assessment marks are calculated from. So what I want to do now is go through a little quick example, and this example is actually taken straight from NESA themselves. They put up an example, and I'm just going to go through it because, as a video format, it might be a little bit easier. So here we have these 6 random students in a class. So like it's a fairly small class of 6 students, but again, it's just to showcase the idea. So we have these 6 students, all right? So throughout the whole year 12, they've gone and done all their assessments according to their assessment plan and everything with all those weightings. And at the end of the year, after their trials, these are the marks they get. So SA for school assessment mark, these are the marks. So as you can see, Alex got 90 out of 100. These are all out of 100. Bruno got 78. Chris got 75. So on and so forth. From that, you can then look at their ranks. So we can see that Alex was ranked number 1. Bruno is ranked 2. Chris is rank 3, so on and so forth. It just so happens to be in that order. It doesn't obviously need to be in alphabetical order, it just worked out that way. But after those ranks have been created, that school assessment mark in that second column is kind of useless. Like I said, we do kind of consider the differences between, so you can see that the difference between Alex and Bruno is 12 marks, and then the difference between Bruno and Chris is 3 marks. That means when we get some moderated assessment mark, you're going to see that Alex is going to be a bit far away from Bruno, and then Bruno is going to be pretty close to Chris. So anyway, these are the ranks, everything's done. So now they study it for the next couple of weeks and months and all that kind of stuff, and they get to their HSC, they do their HSC, and then the HSC marks are all calculated, and these are the exam marks. So we see that Alex got 92, so he did a little bit better, Bruno did a little bit worse, but Chris has actually gone up a little bit and actually beaten Bruno at the end. You see that Diana kind of stayed about the same, Eric went a bit down, and this guy Fred kind of picked up his game a little bit and actually did fairly alright at the end. Note that all these exams add up to 409. You can see in that bottom row for total. So what we need to do now is we're going to take those 409 marks and we need to share them amongst these 6 students so that the rank stays the same, making sure that Alex gets the highest mark, and it's going to be 92. So if I show you this, this is where Nessa come in and they make these marks. So as you see, these moderated assessment marks all add up to 409 as well, and that's by design. That's the whole point of it. We see that Alex got the top exam mark, and it turned out that he got that exam mark, so that's his mark. But then you see Bruno, even though he came 3rd in the exam, because he came 2nd in the school assessment mark, his moderated assessment mark is actually higher than Chris, because he was ranked 2, therefore he gets the 2nd highest amount. Chris was ranked 3, so he gets the 3rd highest amount. Diana gets the 4th highest amount, so on and so forth. You can kind of see what's happening there. We just need to take those 409 marks from that mark pool, and then we share them out to create the moderated assessment mark. So lastly, that moderated assessment mark isn't the final HSC mark. Like I said, the final HSC mark is the average of that exam mark for themselves and the moderated assessment mark. So as we see here, we get these numbers. So Alex is 92, and anything above 90 is a band 6. So Alex will get a band 6. Bruno and Chris, they're in the 70s, so they get a band 4. Band 5 is in the 80s. Diana would get a band 3. Eric and Fred would get a band 2. This is how the HSC marks work. There is a slightly more tricky process also working behind the scenes as well, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video. Anyway, so now we have those marks, and those HSC marks in that final column are the big end marks that these guys will get. And these are also the things that affect your ATAR as well. I'm not going to talk about ATAR in this video. I just want to focus on what all your school assessments do and what it means in terms of ranking and all that kind of stuff. So just a final thing, I just want to talk about what this all means and like what you should take away from this video. So the first thing I need to make absolutely clear is every assessment for every one of your subjects counts. Alright? It all builds towards rank, and you don't want to hinder yourself because you didn't take a particular assessment seriously. Plan accordingly. If you know that in 2 or 3 weeks you have 2 or even 3 assessments on the same day, maybe you have a test in class and 2 assignments due, well, don't wait till the last minute. Start doing them now. At least plan what you're going to do. Set yourself a timetable. Set yourself some kind of schedule that you'll work towards these, so you're not having to freak out about having 3 assessments due in the same day. Because I can tell you, if you come to your teacher saying, oh, can we get an extension because I have 2 or 3 other things due on that same day, your teacher will say, no, you've known about this for months and months and months now. Too bad. I know it sounds harsh, but that's how it has to be. Next is making sure that you don't miss any lessons and make sure you use your study periods properly. At the end of the day, it is a rank, okay? You almost want to kind of view the rest of the grade at the moment as kind of your competition. You shouldn't think of it exactly like that, but if you're seeing other people like missing lessons or not going to their study periods or not going to those extra classes in the morning, afternoon, but you're giving yourself an advantage that they don't have. And in the end, that's going to make a difference. Next, I want to talk about the easy and hard assessments. If you have like an assessment task, maybe a test or something that is really, really, really hard, and everybody else in the class found it very, very hard, then don't worry about it. That won't affect you, because remember, it's all based on rank. It's all relative to how everybody else did. So if you got 30%, but the average was 20%, of course that's an extreme case, that's still really good. So it all depends on how the rest of the class went. So if you feel that you have a harsh, like your teacher is a harsh marker, or maybe they made the test way too hard, that's not going to make a difference, because as long as it's consistent, and that's what we teachers do, we make sure it's consistent, then it won't make a difference. And the same goes for hard assessments, easy assessments, sorry. If I made every test very easy, you could all get 100%, but that's not going to create a good rank, and then it's going to be completely useless. And lastly, just a point to make is, even though I said something to the contrary a second ago, you want to help each other throughout the year. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to the HSC exams, as you saw, all the marks are added up from everybody. So you want to make sure that you're doing your bit and you're making sure other people are doing their bit, so that when you get to HSC exam, there's a lot of marks to share to everybody, and that means lots of people can get band 6s and band 5s and band 4s. At the end of the day, there's a reason why schools like James Roos and stuff get lots of band 6s. That's not because the system favors them, that's because they all work together to help each other and are driven towards the same goal. And if you make sure you're all driven towards that same goal, then there's no reason why you can't do the same. Anyway, if you have any more questions, make sure you ask your teacher based on your subject, or maybe speak to your advisor or the school coordinator or whatever. Because they are the experts. Like, they can talk to you about the specific subject. If you want a bit more of an overview, talk to anybody. Us teachers are here to help, or talk amongst each other and trying to figure things out. Anyway, hopefully this video has been helpful, and like I say, feel free to keep watching it throughout the year. It'll be really, really useful for you guys to know exactly what all these assessments and all these marks are going towards, because it just can set that motivation level just a little bit higher and give you that drive to perform at 100% for every day for the whole year. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.